Welcome to week one of the IHSA football season, joined by the Shim dog, Zakary Shimmin, and our new little tiger, Logan Swan. I'm your host, Kyle Kampmier. Guys, we've been talking about week one since we were back in the middle of July with our group text going back and forth. Of course, we were able to watch Greg and Mitch bust out all these preview shows since the middle of July as well. We had the kickoff party in Moline just over a week ago. But now we are finally here. We're just a couple days away from opening kickoff. Logan, I'm going to turn to you first. What do you like about week one? What excites you the most? And what are you most looking forward to this upcoming season?
What excites me is just getting back out there. There's no question that I love football. I love coaching. I love being a part of it. I've waited since November of last year for that to finally come back. I love coaching baseball as well, but football is where my heart is. Week one's just the start of a great 14 weeks or 15 weeks if you make the play-in round and make it all the way to state. That's what I'm looking forward to. The biggest thing this season, just getting back into the grind of it, scouting every week, preparing the stuff that people don't think about that sounds kind of not fun. I enjoy that.
Yeah, it's funny that you say 14 weeks and then correct yourself quickly at 15 weeks because obviously
it can be 15.
Still getting acclimated to this extra week of football that we have now. But hey, it is what it is, right? Shim, what do you find interesting about week one as we entered these uncharted waters with this new playoff system and only needing 3 wins to qualify for the playoffs?
I think there's a lot to be excited about. I think we're going to have a little bit of a different dynamic that we definitely haven't seen in years past. Some of it we've already seen with the way that some of our teams have scheduled their non-conference games, scheduling more challenging games. But I think it'll be pretty interesting to see how weeks 8 and 9 look. If that 5-win feel will kind of shift more towards the seeding and bye weeks, or will it just kind of lower itself down to the 3-win teams?
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting. I've said it before. I do like the fact that we're rolling into a season where things are new to everybody. Obviously, there's been a lot of negative talk about the expanded playoffs already, even though it got voted in. But with that, I think I'm most excited about just the opportunity to see how that first round, or what I call the round of 32, is going to look after we get past the opening round. And I really am excited for that. And of course, I keep getting asked that about the NUIC, and it's not even NUIC affiliated with me. It's across the board. I just want to see the best 32 teams make the first round of the playoffs in every single classification. And if the expanded playoffs is the way we have to go about it, I'm fine with it. Is it what I want? No, I'd rather find a rating system or something that we can utilize. There's plenty of options out there. And we put the best 32 teams into the playoffs. But of course, that's not fair for everybody according to certain powers to be. And with that, invite everybody in, or so to speak, right? And then we'll have them play it out. I'm fine with that too. Whatever works. At the end of the day, I feel we have the best opportunity to get the best 32 teams into the first round of the playoffs. That's what I've always been advocating for, outside of let's seed it 1 through 32. So let's take a look at our NUIC football state rankings. Before we start, Logan, we were kind of talking off air about this, but I keep getting asked how we come up with our state rankings. So it's honestly very easy. I've heard some people state, well, they use computer rankings. No, that's not the case. I do like ratings, as does Logan and other people, but that's simply for ratings purposes. As far as our state rankings, I actually have this year, we upped it from 8 to now 13 panel members from different areas of the state that follow and cover and or coach small school football around the state of Illinois. And each week, I asked them to provide their top 10 teams that they feel are state ranked. Obviously, our initial preseason poll was started with a big list of teams. We sent out the top 20 teams. We discussed some others. So we'll say 25 teams that we felt were going to be the top 25 teams of each classification once we found out where our projected cut lines would be. From there, everyone does their own research and selects who they think are the top 10. They submit all that to me. I throw it into a spreadsheet. I put a point system on it. So if you're ranked number 1, you get 10 points, number 2, 9, and so forth down the line. And then I add it up across the table, and the team with the most points gets ranked number 1. The team with the second most points gets ranked number 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, until we fill out the top 10. From there, the subsequent teams that received votes but didn't make it into the top 10 based off of total points moves into our teams receiving votes category. With that, I did add a little area behind the number 1 ranked team and or number 2 ranked team that has a number in parentheses, and that indicates how many number 1 or first place votes that team received in those state rankings. So we're going to pull up the Class 1A NUIC Football preseason state rankings presented by Leading Edge Fundraising, supporting teams, building champions, leading the way. And as you can see right there, Lena-Winslow was our number 1 vote getter. The 9 simplifies that there was 9 voters that voted Lena-Win number 1. And the 2 behind Stockton means we had 2 other voters that voted Stockton number 1. From there, everybody else went through point totals. And with that, you have Lena-Winslow at number 1, Stockton at number 2. Our little Tiger Logan, his Calhoun Warriors, are at number 3. Brown County, last year's state runner-up, number 4. Their conference rival, 15 minutes down the road, is Camp Point Central. They're at number 5. Logan was quick to point out that number 6 was Forreston. So in your top 6, they're all NUIC WIVC games, of which we stated last week we felt like we were going to be headstrong for an NUIC WIVC potential state championship rematch, which has happened, 4 times already? Just this decade?
Yeah.
Camp Point Central twice, Carrollton, and Brown County. So 4 times. And that's just since 2021. That's not counting the Forreston and Camp Point Central game in 2018, Carrollton, Forreston in 2014. And then it goes back a little ways longer than that before you find another one. But needless to say, these are the top 2 conferences when it comes to Class 1A over recent years. And with that, they are the top 2 strongest conferences since 2021 on a regular basis. Number 7 is Anawan Wethersfield. Number 8, Galena. And then number 9 is GCMS, who was a 2-time back-to-back state champion in 2017 and 2018 in Class 2A. And then Hayworth is at number 10. Other teams receiving votes are Arthur Lovington, Atwood Hammond, KZ Westfield, Marquette, and no, that's Ottawa Marquette, not Alton Marquette. Got asked that one already this year. Greenfield Northwestern, Cumberland, Fulton, and Clifton Central. So that gives you a look at our Class 1A state rankings to open up the year. Guys, what do you think about that? Does that pretty much fit the scenario? I mean, I know it's not in direct order of what you guys may have ranked, but does that look feasible?
Yeah, I mean, once you get to, and this isn't picking on a team, but once you get to like the 9, 10, like your 11, 12, like it gets really subjective of how you view it. Because some of those teams in that grouping, you can, like, they get pretty close to like, well, what about them or them? Like, it gets to, you just got to decide. Because I've always said the preseason one are just like, to a certain degree, it's almost like drawing names out of a hat.
It is, to a degree. I mean, we did
There's
our
trends.
research. We've
Yes.
had a lot of conversations. People think that we're just spitballing here at the start of the season. No, that we've been talking about this for a good 8 weeks, probably.
It's been a while.
Right? Anyway, let's take a look at our Class 2A state football rankings by NUIC Football, presented by Reese and Reese Injury Attorneys. When you need someone in your corner, Reese and Reese is there. There's our Class 2A state rankings. So you got Wilmington in the 1 spot, 13 votes. So every voter selected Wilmington to be number 1 in their poll. Not surprising. What's more surprising is everybody also selected El Paso-Gridley to be number 2 in their poll. Not really, but I mean, they did. Not surprising is what I'm getting at. Number 3, Moreau Forsyth. Number 4, Rock Ridge. Number 5, Farmington. Number 6, Tri-Valley. Number 7 is Sterling Newman. Number 8, Aurora Christian. Number 9, Eastland Pearl City. Number 10, Nashville. Teams receiving votes: Seneca, Pana, Westville, Riverdale, who Stockpile picked to go 9-0. Not sure where he pulled that one out of his hat, but hey, he is a Riverdale Ram. We'll give it to him. Riverdale is in our opening state rankings, so there you go, Stock. We got your Rams in there. Johnston City. I've already heard from the Wahoo gang down south. Johnston City needs to be higher. Chester, and then Bismarck, Henning, Rossville, Allen. So that's the Class 2A state rankings. Anything stand out here, gentlemen? Zach, we'll go to you.
I mean, I think that top 7, I think it's hard to argue with that. I mean, 1, 2, I mean, I think we could all kind of agree that, like you said, no one was going to put either of those teams anywhere else. And then we got a lot of returning teams that belong right where they belong in that top 7.
Logan, what do you think? You like it?
8 out of the 10 teams are all in the north.
Hey, I can't help that.
It's not me. It's me. Just I find it so interesting how kind of unbalanced 2A North and 2A South are.
I mean, I will be remiss to say the last South 2A state champ was St. Teresa in 2022. And they beat Tri-Valley, which isn't necessarily a North team, but they were in the North bracket that year.
North.
And that was a great game, 29-22. It was an awesome game. But prior to that, I'm trying to think when the last time 2A had a South champion representative without looking. Let's see, it wasn't 2019. That was Newman. 2018 and 2017 was GCMS. 2016 was DMAC. 2015 was Tri-Valley. 2014? Nope, that was EPC. 2013?
It had to be Monroe a year.
2012, Monroe was in 1A, and they did win from the South in 1A in 2012. 2013, Monroe was still in 1A because they lost to Tri-Valley. Tri-Valley lost to Lena-Winslow that year in 1A. I mean, that's how far back we got to go to find another South champion in 2A. And I haven't even picked it yet. Anyway, just food for thought. Let's take a look at our Class 3A NUIC state football rankings presented by Byron Wealth Management. Build today, prepare for tomorrow. Byron Wealth Management sponsors our 3A state rankings. And this is an area where I'm really surprised. We have people reaching out saying that we're biased to Byron. So I had to look it up. The last time Byron lost in the playoffs to a public school was in the 2019 state championship game when they lost to Williamsville. Other than that, they lost in the quarterfinals in 2022 to IC Catholic 35-0. And then they lost in the second round. Or no, that was the semifinals. Sorry, semifinals. Then they lost in the second round to Montini Catholic in 2024 by what, 2 points? 16-14, I think it was. 15. 1 point. It's 15-14. The only other time that Byron has lost in the regular season since 2016 are to Stillman Valley, their biggest conference rival, in 2019 and 2022, both in very close games. And in both seasons, well, at least in 2019, Byron went to the state championship game. And in 2022, IC Catholic dumped both of them. Byron just made it further than Stillman Valley, but they both met their road against IC. So that I don't know how you can't think that Byron's not number one. I get it. They lost Caden Considine. Andrew Talbert's not going back out. But let's be real, people. They returned 8 people, 8 starters off of a state championship defense. I don't know what you guys do around the state of Illinois, but yes, offense wins you games, but defense still wins you championships. And I'm not going to lie. I mean, IC Catholic is literally right there at number 2. And you can see Byron had 7 people vote for them number 1. IC Catholic had 6 people. Now, I did not put the total point totals out there. Byron had 122 points. IC Catholic had 121 points. 1 point separates them from being 1 and 2. That's about as close to a split as you can get having an odd number of people voting on it. Now, I will give people props. There's a lot of people saying that, yes, Unity is good, but St. Joe Ogden's better. And they are arguing that St. Joe Ogden's too low. And I'm not disagreeing with you there. Me personally, I did have St. Joe Ogden a little bit higher, I believe, than number 6. But that doesn't mean the entire panel did, which I know they didn't. And they still had 4 losses last year, if I remember correctly. I think it was 4. Yes,
yeah, they went.
Go ahead, Logan.
They went 8-4. They went 8-4 because they lost in the semifinals.
So, I mean,
or quarterfinals, or whatever it was.
And I know that they return a lot. I have no doubt about it in my mind that St. Joe Ogden is going to be a team to watch. We've talked about them probably every year for the last 5 years. And we religiously talk about the Illini Prairie Conference. So, and if you look, you got Monticello sitting there at number 8, another Illini Prairie team. So you have 3 of the top teams in the Illini Prairie sitting in the 3 spot, 6 spot, and 8 spot of the state rankings in Class 3A. I don't know what to tell you. But regardless, so we got Byron there at number 1, IC Catholic number 2, Tolona Unity 3, Richmond Burton at number 4, Williamsville at 5, St. Joseph Ogden at 6, Bishop McNamara at 7. That one I'm a little leery on. I don't think McNamara is going to be as strong as they were last year, but you never know. Monticello at number 8, number 9, Monmouth Roseville, number 10, Dupec. Teams receiving votes, Princeton, Vandalia, which Vandalia is actually on the 1A, 2A bubble, Benton, Johnsburg, Chicago Hope, Roxana, Genoa Kingston, and Mantino. I don't know. Pretty good list of teams, I think. when we're taking a look at Class 3A to start the year. What do you guys think? Shim?
Yeah, I think the top two, like you said, I mean, it's pretty, 1A, 1B, it seems like. But I think the 3 through 10, I don't think anyone really had too many complaints about how the way they'd end up being shuffled across the board. I think it's pretty open outside of that 1 and 2 spot.
Agreed, 100%. Logan, what do you think?
I'll agree with Shim on that. I think 1 and 2, it's interchangeable depending on how you view it. And even some people who may have after changed their mind, like I went back and forth several times trying to decide Byron or IC Catholic. 3 through 10 seems like the usual names you see in 3A, and I don't think I could fault anyone for just about any combination of them, because like it's a very good and loaded class seemingly every year. If it wasn't for, I said this, if it wasn't for 1A, 3A would be my favorite class, because every year the amount of talent it's nuts.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, I was talking to somebody from Bloomington Central Catholic, and of course, they were hoping that they would be in the 3A state rankings. There is still an outside chance that they could fall into Class 3A. I don't think we're going to see the Class 3A cutoff drop lower than what the projected cutoff for the state rankings are, which is 557.5. But right now, Bloomington Central Catholic sitting at 580.5. So there's a couple schools that would have to fall in before they would drop in. But in that conversation, it came up, outside of the likes of Rochester and Sacred Heart Griffin, that 4A might be a better opportunity to advance further than what 3A is. And to be quite honest, I'd have to say it probably is, because right now 3A is by far a much deeper class than 4A overall. When you take a look at everything considered, you have higher rated teams in Class 3A more at the top than you do in Class 4A in their top, which, that's the basis of what we're looking at, right? I mean, we see it all the time. If you're in 3A, more times than not, you're playing 4A teams and vice versa. I mean, there's really not much of a difference between 3A and 4A. Outside of a couple teams may just be a little bit better, but I don't know. I like it. I think this is great. I think Class 3A is definitely stronger overall this year than they were maybe even last year. And we thought last year was a pretty loaded field. And I think it might be better this year yet. But I still think 3A is still deeper overall than what 4A is too, which goes back to what you were saying, Logan. 3A is so fun to watch. And then I forgot, I can't be remiss of Montini Catholic sitting there in Class 4A either. They are the defending 4A champs, and they're legit. But we also seen them falter in Class 3A to Byron, and then were able to squeeze by Byron and walk their rest of their way to a state title. So there's proof in the pudding right there too. And they beat Rochester. If you beat Rochester, you're good, right?
First ever state title loss for them.
Yeah, that was their first title loss. Exactly. All right. Enough of that. Let's dive into the weekly schedule when we return right after this.
When it comes to planning for your future, you want someone you can trust. At Prairie State Investments, Mark Pfeiffer is here to help you build a plan that fits your life, your family, and your goals. Whether it's retirement, college savings, or investing wisely for tomorrow, Mark has the knowledge and local commitment to guide you every step of the way. Don't leave your future up to chance. Call Mark Pfeiffer at Prairie State Investments today at 815-668-8131 and start investing with confidence. If you or your loved one has been injured, you need someone who will fight for you. Reese & Reese Injury Attorneys have been serving our community for over 40 years, standing up for people when they need it most. They know how to handle the insurance companies and get results, so you can focus on healing. Don't face it alone. Call Reese & Reese Injury Attorneys today at 815-968-8131. 8851 and let their experience work for you.
Are you looking to get more out of every acre? Channel Northwest Seed Supply is helping local farmers put the right seed in the ground and maximize their crop potential. Channel Northwest Seed Supply provides Channel seed products backed by Pivot Bio and Meristem Crop Performance, bringing farmers genetics, technology, and agronomic solutions designed to help your operation perform. For more information, call Anthony Preston at 815-990-4638. Channel Northwest Seed Supply, local service, proven products, and a commitment to helping you grow. That's Channel Northwest Seed Supply. Give Anthony a call today at 815-990-4638. Welcome back. We're going to start in the NUIC, and the first game we're going to take a look at is Clinton at Dakota. This game is going to be Saturday at 5:30 p.m. When you take a look at these two teams, both of them clearly struggling as time goes on. Low numbers, surprisingly, especially for Clinton being the size that they are. But last season, Dakota went 1-8. Clinton was 0-9. This obviously is a very big game for both teams to start this season, to get to at least that 1-0 mark, right? Get that W. But it also is going to be a huge playoff point for either conference, whichever team wins this game. Logan, we'll start with you. Your thoughts on this one?
I think back to last year when it was Dakota and Rockford Lutheran who played in their non-conference game, and we kind of talked about if there was ever a chance for Dakota to get their one, this seemed like the one, and then they did it pretty handily, if I recall. I kind of feel the same way about this Dakota squad. I think they're going to win. I think the projection that we have in front of us, I think that's fair, a good projection for this. And then obviously with more teams getting to the playoffs and vying for seeding, playoff points have never been more coveted.
Well, I mean, it goes back to one of those things that we were asked about earlier this week. Or maybe it was earlier today, even in our own little group text. It was Ty. Ty was asking what the bracket would look like this year with last year's teams in it, right? And if you went back and looked at the 2-7 teams that made the playoff field based off of last year's record, you needed 47 playoff points to be in the playoff field. So playoff points are going to be pivotal. We already know 3-win teams are going to be into the playoffs. It's going to come down to 2-7 teams. And I think Seuss put it last year, or based off of last year's stuff, that there was 42 teams, I think, that were 2-7. And it was 14 that made the playoff field. So it's not a lot. Which means that you're going to have a high win or a high playoff point total to qualify for the playoffs as a 2-win team. Yeah, Logan, you're right. The projection is Dakota wins 40-21. Now, something I find hard about that, and this goes back to last week's preview, is they only have one key player returning in Zeke Wales. Dakota only has one senior on this team. They do have two players that are in the 1,000-pound club. Zeke Wales is one. Caden Jones is the other. Both of them are juniors. They have a very thin junior class. And some of their best athletes that are out for football this year are the freshman class, which are greatly undersized to be playing varsity football. I think it's going to be hard for Dakota to get a lot of success. And with the amount of players that they have out, they're sitting between 23 to 25 right now, which is a little bit higher than where they were a couple seasons ago. But with that, it's going to be hard for them to sustain a program if they get some of these underclassmen injured and or to the point where they no longer come out for whatever reason of, getting beat, getting hurt, something to that nature. It's Dakota's in a very dangerous position right now. And from what I can tell, based off of Clinton's schedule, their record, they're not sitting in a much better place either. So I guess it's a good thing this game's in week 1 because you're probably going to be the healthiest you are in week 1, right? Shim, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think it's, pretty simple, with two struggling programs like this, who can start the season 1-0, and then from there, can you find another win on your schedule? Maybe sneak into that, 2-7, at least give your program something to build off of playoff wise.
Yeah, totally agree. So, Dakota for the win. That's what you got, Logan, right? Shim? All right. Book it. Next game, Dwight at Forreston. This game's going to be Friday at 7 o'clock. Dwight was in the 1A quarterfinals a season ago. Forreston went 5-5 last year, losing in the first round to Lena-Winslow. Dwight went 8-4. They lost in the quarterfinals to Stockton. Obviously, this is going to be a big game for both teams to get back on track. Forreston made it back to the playoffs last season after a 1-year hiatus. But they ran into the state champs right away in round 1, which is conference rival Lena-Winslow. Dwight actually came off of dropping their co-op with Gardner South Wilmington and then proceeded to move into the 1A quarterfinals a year after being in the 2A quarterfinals. But then they met up with Stockton, got bushwhacked, and ended their season there. No loss, no surprise. But this game is projected to be somewhat close, fellas. Right now, Forreston is the favorite to win. Not surprising, so to speak. I'm more surprised by how closely projected this game is. And granted, you got to take it for what it's worth. There hasn't been a game played yet this year, so some of that is being based off of what last year's teams were, with a little bit of input of what this year's teams returned from last year's team. But Forreston projected to win 31-26. Shem, what's your thoughts? We'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I think it's a really good test for both teams. Obviously we've talked about it before, but we're really high on Forreston, to start the year. And I think Dwight is building something, especially finding the success they have after even dropping their co-op. So I think it should be a very good game, but also a good benchmark game to see where both teams are at.
Yeah, I agree there. Logan, what you got?
I'm a little surprised by how close it is too. Obviously the HS ratings it's factoring week 1, so all the things you said are very much true. But we've seen Dwight, if I recall, run into an NUIC team the last couple years, and it hasn't gone their way. And Forreston has 15 guys back, 9 on defense. I find it hard to believe Forreston's going to give up 26 points to Dwight.
Yeah, I mean, Dwight has a decent offense, but they lose quite. I mean, they lost a little bit off that 2A quarterfinal team, and they returned a lot of their key players, but they lost quite a bit of those key players off of last year's team too. So it's going to be interesting to see what Coach Standiford has as far as what he's built up in his time as the head coach there. But having seen Dwight play, I like the style of offense that they play. Now, can they elevate that game to play at a much higher physicality level? That is yet to be seen, but they got to go up against Stockton last year. They got to see what it takes to be at that level. Now you have a Forreston team that had to battle their way to get into the playoffs. They're not too far removed from being a state power. They were last in the semifinals in 2021. And they have a good nucleus of guys that are returning off of last year's team that were able to get a little bit of success. And one of the things I always look at is, where did they go in the playoffs? And do they have enough guys returning? And Forrest answers that. Yes, they lost in the first round of the playoffs. If they don't get matched up with Lena-Winslow, I think they go further in the playoffs than they did. But that wasn't the case. But they return a lot of guys off that team at skilled positions, at key line positions. I think we're going to see Forston have a lot of success this year. And it starts right here against Dwight. All right. Fulton at St. Bede. Fulton went 2-7 last year. They missed the playoffs. And they've missed the playoffs every year since that 2023 first round loss to rival Morrison. St. Bede also went 2-7 last year. Both teams are looking to get back to the playoffs. Shim, I'll start with you. You have probably a little bit of familiarity with both these teams. What's your thoughts on this game? What do you see happening here?
Yeah, I think it's two teams that struggled last year. You know, obviously we've talked about it. Fulton had some injuries last year that kind of derailed their season. But I think we have optimism that they can surprise some people in the NUIC this year. Obviously, anyone that's been to St. Bede knows it's a tough place to play on the road. But I think Fulton should be able to go there and get a win and get Coach Lawler one win closer to 100.
Yeah, Coach Lawler is definitely rising up that coaching rank win level, sitting at 97 wins as he enters year 20 as the head coach at Fulton. Likewise, he's also getting into that top 10 talk among winningest coaches in the NUIC as well. So he's had a great career. He's never made it past the quarterfinals as a coach. It's going to be a tough road for Fulton this year in the conference as a whole, but I definitely think that we're going to see a much more successful season out of Fulton, being that they were so young last year. They battled those injuries last year. They're back. They're healthy. They're a year older, a year stronger. I think we're going to see Fulton definitely turn some things around and start to be a player again in the NUIC. And I think this might be one of the deepest NUIC conferences we've had in recent years as well, with the amount of competition that we could potentially see from 1 through 6. Because let's be honest, there's two teams I just don't see really being that competitive this year. But the rest, it's going to be a dogfight week to week. Logan, your take. What do you got?
I like Fulton. I liked them last year when they were really young, and I will recall I kept pointing out, like, I think next year they could make that jump. I think you see them get back on track. Again, the projection's 35-19 Fulton. That feels kind of in the ballpark of if both teams play to the best of their ability. But yeah, I like Fulton.
Yeah, Fulton's projected to win this one 35-19. I agree. Fulton goes on the road to Peru, comes away with the win. Go Steamers. All right, next game, Rushville Industry at Galena. Rushville Industry has a new head coach in Elliot Craig. This is the first meeting between both these teams that I can see, at least, since, the 1996 or however far back IHSA goes when the internet became a thing. Rushville went 7-3 last year, losing in the first round to that Dwight team we just got done talking about a little bit ago, 29-26. So one could say that had Rushville got past Dwight in that first round, maybe it's Rushville moving into the quarterfinals. And everybody knows what I like to say about Rushville. Rush in, rush out, Rushville. But Galena went 5-5. They lost to Stockton, another conference rival, in the first round of the playoffs, 26-0. Of course, that was an 8-0 game at halftime. So very close halftime score. Stockton too much in the second half. Galena couldn't find the end zone. We talk about it in our group chat a lot. We have great respect for the Lincoln Land Conference. But when it comes to the competition level of where they're at compared as a conference as a whole, I'm not saying every team. They do have some good teams in the conference. As a conference as a whole, they're just not up to the same level as the NUIC. And there's a lot of conferences that aren't. It's hard to be that level. I think Rushville graduated a lot of kids off of last year's team. There was a lot of people that were in my ear last year, especially this time last year, because we didn't have Rushville high enough. And lo and behold, they lost in the first round once again. Those guys graduated. They have a new head coach. There's going to be some acclimation. Granted, Elliot Craig's not a new head coach. He's been around the game for a while. He's got experience. He's had success. But you're also going into an area that Galena is a little bit removed from their heyday. But for 30 years, they were one of the teams that were heavily talked about among the NUIC. It's a program with 3 state championships and multiple deep playoff runs. On top of that, they're playing back at home this year after playing all of their games north of the border in Wisconsin due to renovations of their field. They get to open up their new rendition of Chuck Cordy Field this week with what I feel is an inferior opponent comparably. Logan, you're close to Rushville. Well, sort of. But you've seen enough of Rushville over the time. What's your thoughts?
I'm with you. I think Galena's gonna win. I don't know what to think of Rushville considering how much they lost. I do have a little familiarity with Coach Craig. He was at Beardstown a few years. It's spread style offense, so it's a new offense for Rushville. When he was there, he usually put his 2 best athletes at quarterback, halfback, and one was either out on the edge in like your X or Y position or at slot, depending on how they wanted to move their team around. That's usually how he schemed his team to what he had at Beardstown, and it worked. They made a couple playoff appearances with him. Having athletes doesn't work against the NUIC. You gotta have the physicality, especially up front.
Shim?
Yeah, I think just to kind of piggyback on you, I think it's going to be a tough week for Rushville. I think this is the first step to a successful season for Galena. I think they have high hopes of, finishing in the top 3 this year in the conference. And I think this is kind of like a confidence building game before they get into conference play.
Galena projected to win this one 31-13. No real surprise there. All right, let's go into one of the more interesting matchups that we have. Benet Academy out of Lisle coming to the fields of Lena to play Lena-Winslow. Benet Academy has a new head coach. You may have heard of him, 3-time Super Bowl champ, James White. Benet has had some struggles in recent years, 3-6 last season. They are in the Chicago Catholic League in the Purple Division. Same division as Niles Notre Dame, Marmion Academy, and St. Patrick. So it's not one of the top tier Chicago Catholic leagues. But regardless, it's still a CCL division. And if you've ever played against the CCL, it's no joke. Like, we talk about rivalries here. You get into the CCL, those rivalries are very, very hot-tempered rivalries. But they're supposed to be Catholics, right? Kidding. But this is going to be probably one of the largest. Well, enrollment-wise, it's definitely the largest team Lena-Winslow's ever taken on. Bennett's enrollment is just over 1,900 kids, which clearly puts them as a 7A school. And if they had the multiplier, which I don't know if they do or not.
I don't think they do. I didn't see him listed when I looked like a week ago.
They do have a multiplier. So they do have a multiplier at 1973.4. So even without that multiplier, they're probably still a solid 6A school. This Rick Aaron taking on this game when he had Wilmington originally scheduled before everything got moved around kind of changes things up a lot, right? Lena-Winslow did beat DePaul Prep just a couple years ago, right before DePaul Prep won a 4A state championship and then bumped all the way up to Class 7A. Imagine that. That's a different topic, different situation, different story. But that's the only time Lena-Winslow has ever beat a CCL team. They have played IC Catholic twice in the past. Both were losses, both in the playoffs, one in Class 3A, one in Class 2A, 2002, 2008. Both ended with IC Catholic winning their first two state championships. Before IC Catholic was part of the Chicago Catholic League. There's going to be athletes on this field. There's no doubt about that. You have a big-time school here. I think the biggest thing is Lena-Winslow going to be able to play their style of football and offset what Benet Academy does? Or is Benet Academy going to be too athletic for Lena-Winslow to keep up with? Logan, give you the jump on this one.
So I'll tip my hand right now. I am of the people that believes Lena-Winslow is going to win this game. I will tip my hand right now. You brought it up. They're going to the fields of Lena-Winslow. I brought it up in our group chat earlier today, but I said shades of Camp Point Althoff version 1, the one Camp Point 1, not the one back when Coach Dixon first took over and it was in the early 10s. I'm talking about the one when Camp Point beat them. I can see that scenario happen because it's going to be a different vibe. It's a different atmosphere than what Bennett's going to be used to. They're going to be well coached. There's no doubt in my mind they're going to be well coached and run and have athletes. But again, I know it's a different style athlete than I brought up earlier. That doesn't work with just the NUIC. You need to have the physicality, which again, this is a CCL school, so I expect them to bring more than enough to do it. But they're in the midst of a rebuild. It's a first-year head coach, and James White. I just think Lena-Winslow is going to be able to grind it out, and it's going to frustrate the Benet Academy players because they're going to know what's coming, and if they can't stop it, that's the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah. I mean, there was a reference to Lena-Winslow back in 2018 when they had to play Aurora Christian, when Aurora Christian first dropped into Class 1A in the quarterfinals. And all you heard Aurora Christian say was, all they're doing is playing farm football. All they're doing is playing farm football. Well, news is farm football's kicking your ass. I don't know what to tell you. You better man up. This is definitely a tall task. Shim, before I drop the hammer on everything, What's your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of already touched on it. I think it comes down to who can be more disciplined. I think both teams are going to see a style of football they're not going to see the rest of the year. And I think it'll be interesting to see how they respond. You know, can Lena shut down the passing game that Bennett's going to, have throughout the game, or will it be a case of Bennett not knowing what to do when Lena runs the ball 35 times for 3 to 4 yards a carry?
I agree, because like Logan said, that's hard. When you have a team that doesn't care how long their runs are, but all they're doing is basically playing keep away, but churning out enough yards to eat clock and just literally pull your will right out of your soul. That is more demoralizing than getting beat 48-0. Let's be honest. And I've seen it time and time and time again. Do I think that Lena-Winslow can win this game? I said it in our group text before. I think they can. I think that if Lena-Winslow does win this game, it's going to turn a lot of heads very, very quickly. Now, the biggest cause of concern is Benet Academy is probably going to have two different squads, an offensive squad and a defensive squad. Lena-Winslow might not have enough depth to make those substitutions. Are they going to be fit enough out of the gates to be able to withstand that? And can they get enough pressure on the quarterback to disrupt his timing and flow? If he can do that, I think Lena-Winslow will be fine in the passing game. But if they cannot get pressure on the quarterback while maintaining and keeping him within the pocket and or limiting the ability for him to scramble and get more yards on the run, that's where Lena-Winslow is going to find success. But if they don't do that, they're going to get pummeled. That's my hammer drop. Surprisingly, Lena-Winslow is projected to win this game 42-14. Will that happen? I don't know. I think if Lena-Winslow wins, I think it'll be much closer than what this spread gap is. If Bennett wins, I could see it being more to that regard. When Lena-Winslow beat DePaul Prep, I think it was like 37-24, something like that. And even at that time, and that was before DePaul Prep got all those recruits in there and then ran away with the state title with a below average enrollment when their enrollment was really over 1,000 kids. Even at that time, Coach A had stated that DePaul had better athletes. They just didn't have enough discipline at that time. Lena-Winslow won on discipline alone. We'll see. It's a very intriguing matchup. Hats off to Lena-Winslow for even putting it on the schedule. Obviously, I don't think it win or lose. Well, win, it's going to be awesome. Lose, it's not going to hurt what Lena-Winslow does at all. This is just one of those matchups that you're like, holy crap. Anyway, next game takes us to EPC, where they are going to play host to Sandwich. Sandwich has a 3A enrollment for the first time since 1985. Wow. Not a lot of playoff success. They're only 7-9 in the playoffs in their history. They do have a tie to the NUIC. Former Dakota wrestling coach Tom Unruh, who's also the brother of Hall of Fame coach Jim Unruh, guided Sandwich to the playoffs in their second ever playoff berth in 2002, where they lost to a Rochester team before they became Rochester in the first round. Last year, the Indians were 2-7. They come out of the Kishwaukee River Conference with the likes of Richmond, Burton, Johnsburg, Woodstock North, Woodstock, etc. EPC obviously was 5-5 last year. Lost in the first round to Farmington 10-8 in a game that, let's just say, I picked that game to be as close as it was, despite all the naysayers out there. But you know what they say about naysayers. EPC is obviously looking to compete within the NUIC again this year. Like I said, the conference appears to be more competitive than it has been over the past few years. And a win here for EPC will definitely set them off in the right direction. Shim, we'll start with you. What's your thoughts here on the Wildcats?
I think it'll be a nice tune-up game for them, you know, kind of like a benchmark to see where they're at to start the year before they get into conference play in week 3.
Logan?
Yeah, I'm with Shim. I think it's a good tune-up. They obviously are going to come in pretty heavily favored. It's 41-21 EPC. I think EPC rolls. Won't be shocked if it's a running clock.
EPC projected a win, 41-21. As long as they come out to play, EPC's definitely got the boys up front. They got the size, they got the strength. Now, can those guys up front get off the ball and make the plays? They have the skill, guys. So now they just have to be able to execute, basically. And if they can do that, week 1 goes to EPC. All right. We're going to discuss our NUIC Game of the Week presented by Jess Shoemaker Remax Town Link and Country when we return right after this.
Are you looking to buy or sell a home in the NUIC area? Trust local expertise. Jess Schumacher with Remax Town Lake and Country knows the market and understands the community. Whether you're upgrading, downsizing, or buying your first home, Jess is here to make the process simple and stress-free. Put his experience to work for you today. Call Jess Schumacher with Remax Town Lake and Country at 608-347-3659. Your hometown realtor, helping you find home where your story begins.
Jess Shoemaker Remax Town Lake and Country Game of the Week takes us to El Paso-Gridley High School in El Paso, where the Stockton Blackhawks set to square off against the Titans of El Paso-Gridley. This game is Friday night at 7 o'clock. Both teams coming off of semifinal appearances where they both lost to eventual state champions, Lena-Winslow and Wilmington, respectively. Both teams finished last year 12-1 as well. This game features the two teams that open up in our state rankings that we showed earlier. Ranked number 2, both in Class 1A and 2A, right behind those same teams that beat them for the state championship, or in the semifinals, I should say, for a state championship at the same time last year. But both these teams have the expectations of reaching normal this year and could be the favorites at the same time. You know, there's a couple people did vote for Stockton. Nobody gave El Paso-Gridley votes so far, but a lot of people have been talking very heavy on EPG and what they can do. With that, EPG returns quarterback Owen Adams, running back Aiden Adams, wide receiver Javian Maxon. On defense, they return Griffin Hale, Harlan Toylan, Braden Gibson, and Siobhan Maxon. And I reached out to Coach Benedict. This is what he had to say. Last year's offense averaged over 35 points per game. Their defense gave up 11 points per game. Fortunately, they return a lot of those same players, but they also know that they have their work cut out against Stockton. He is very excited for this home-and-home opportunity series with them and will be a great test for him both this year and next year. There's a lot of excitement around this game, guys. Everybody's been talking about it. It's been talked about on Friday Night Drive. It's been talked about on View from the West. We've talked about it before. Now we're talking about it again. No reason to wonder why this isn't our game of the week. Side note, Stockton played El Paso before the consolidation in the 1991 semifinals, where Stockton won 20-0 on their way to their second state championship. Stockton never played Gridley at all. So, another side note, Gridley at one time was coached by legendary coach Ken Leonard. Interesting. Very interesting. Two legends of football right there. Ken Leonard, the all-time winningest coach, started his career at Gridley. John O'Boyle, the former legendary coach of Stockton, when he retired in 1997 with his 279 wins, retired as Illinois' all-time winningest coach at that time. Of course, part of his career spanned into the pre-playoff era as well. So imagine if some of those teams he had played in the playoffs. Anyway, Shim, we're going to start with you. What do you like about this game? What do you see going on in this game?
I mean, I think it's a win-win for both teams. I mean, I don't see the losing team of this game getting much backlash for losing it. I think it's a pretty evenly matched game for both teams. Like you said, everybody's talking about this game. It's easily one of the best small school games in week one. And I think the contrast in styles will be very interesting to see.
Agreed. Logan?
Yeah, I'm with Shim. I find the contrast in styles interesting. El Paso-Gridley was the one team that kind of broke the mold from the IHSA last year that really stuck out. I expect them to be really good again because they have a bunch of those same kids back. I like Stockton. I'll say I like Stockton to win this game, but I think the projection has it close as well. But I think it might shock people that this is close because of the reputation that the NUIC has. Not saying El Paso-Gridley's not good, because they are. They're very good.
And with that, they're playing on their home, which is a turf field, so that will definitely help them in the speed factor. Likewise, it should help Stockton in the speed factor as well. And we watched Stockton go on the turf in Lena last year and come away with a decisive win over Lena-Winslow early in the season. I don't think I'll be surprised either way who wins this game. I think this is going to be a great game. I think it's a great opportunity for both teams, as Coach Benedict said, to see what each team has. Great opportunity for both. I was talking to Coach Downey earlier this week as well. He too stated that he finds this game going to be very, very tough with how fast and explosive EPG look, and is excited at the same time for the opportunity that they have in front of them. This is a game I wish I could get to. Like, if this were a Saturday game, I'd be making the drive to El Paso to go pick this game up. And Shim Dog would be riding shotgun with me because I'd stop on the way through Sterling, pick his ass up, and we're going. But unfortunately, it's tomorrow night, or Friday night, I mean. And being the drive from where I'm at to El Paso is too far away for me to make it on time. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen. So I'm going to have to rely on score updates and all that other good stuff to stay up to date, but we'll definitely be tuned into this one. I think a lot of people around the state are going to be tuned into this one, as it is one of the biggest marquee matchups in small school football across the state of Illinois come Friday night. Stockton projected to win this one 24-19. Surprised either of you?
No, I think it's a toss-up game either way. You know, kind of like how we previously touched on.
I'm with Shim. Stockton by a touchdown.
All right. We're going to talk about the BNC, the Big Northern Conference, when we return right after this.
Hey there, local high school football fans. This is Sean Considine, a Byron Tiger and Iowa Hawkeye alumni, and now an LPL financial advisor. I'm passionate about high school football because it's the purest form of the game where communities come together, lifelong character is built, and the love for football runs deeper than the scoreboard. You can find me in my Byron office most days until I run off to football practice. I'm happy to talk about football or the markets. I'll leave that up to you. I want to wish everyone across Illinois a safe, successful, and memorable high school football season. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC.
When it comes to your home, shop, garage, or business, you want a floor that can take whatever you throw at it. That's where Diedrich Epoxy comes in. Diedrich Epoxy provides high-quality epoxy flooring solutions that transform ordinary concrete into a durable, professional-looking service built for everyday use. Whether you're upgrading your garage, shop, commercial space, or workspace, Diedrich Epoxy has you covered. Tough, clean, professional, built to last. Don't settle for a floor that just looks good today. Invest in a floor that's ready for tomorrow. Diedrich Epoxy. Strong floors for wherever life happens. Give Diedrich Epoxy a call at 815-988-2389. Check out Diedrich Epoxy a day and see what they can do for your space. When it comes to precision, quality, and getting the job done right, Rockford Molded Products is a name you can trust. Rockford Molded Products specializes in high-quality plastic injection molding, product assembly, custom fabrication, and precision work, delivering dependable solutions with a commitment to quality and customer service. Family-owned and operated, Rockford Molded Products has been serving customers since 1943. For quality you can count on, contact Rockford Molded Products at 815-637-0585. Rockford Molded Products. Quality is more than a buzzword. It's the way they do business. Welcome back as we move into the Big Northern Conference. The first game we are going to talk about is North Boone at Byron. Last year, Byron won this game 61-7 in week 9. North Boone went 5-5 last year. They lost in the first round of the playoffs to Richmond Burton 49-0. Byron went on to a 14-0 season, winning their state championship 56-50 over Tolono Unity for their 4th state title in school history, their 3rd state title over the past 5 seasons. Like I said earlier on the show, Byron has 2 regular season losses dating back to 2016, both against Stillman Valley in 2019 and 2022. Outside of that, Byron has been the talk of the Big Northern Conference every year since 2016, obviously making it to the state championship game in 5 of the past 7 seasons as well. Shim, we'll kick it off with you. Do you think North Boone has an opportunity against Byron on Friday?
I think we're going to see the same old Byron. I think the biggest thing for them is they kind of have a new look backfield with, Talbert obviously deciding to sit the fall out to help prepare to play baseball at the University of North Carolina, and obviously Caden Considine graduating. Not that they can't replace that production, but I think having 2 guys like that anchored your backfield the last couple of years you can have some growing pains, but I think Byron will get that figured out pretty quickly.
Logan, what about you? What do you think?
Byron. That's it. Byron. Next.
All right. Byron projected to win this one 60-0. We'll see if that happens. But Coach Brett Frederick, in his 2nd year at North Boone, a North Boone alum, trying to make things look a little bit different for the Vikings. We'll see. All right, next game, Dixon at Genoa Kingston. Last year, Dixon won this game 58-20 in week 9. Dixon went 9-2 last year, losing in the second round to Coal City 49-42 in that great second round playoff game. Genoa Kingston went 4-5 on the season, missing out on the playoffs. Outside of Byron, Dixon has been the next biggest team in the Big Northern Conference over the last couple of years. And with the likes of Jagger Kemp and a couple others look to be in competition once again for a Big Northern title. Shim, start with you, bud.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good benchmark game for Genoa Kingston. They've got high aspirations this year in the Big Northern, and playing a Dixon team that once again looks like they're going to have a shot to dethrone Byron in the Big Northern. I think it'll kind of be a good game to see where both teams are at, but I'm going to take Dixon in this one.
Logan, what you got?
Yeah, I'm with Shim. Again, it's a benchmark game for Genoa Kingston. Kind of see what they've grown from. They returned. I just went back and looked 6 on offense, 6 on defense. Dixon's obviously been the one that's been kind of competing with Byron for the last several years now. I expect Dixon to win, but if Genoa Kingston can at bare minimum compete and make it an honest game, that's a good sign for them going forward.
Yeah, Dixon projected to win this one 48-14, but, and it's a big but, Coach Cam DeVakos has a lot of returning players as well and is looking to make another step up. And there's a lot of people there very high on the cogs this year to be more formative within the Big Northern Conference. We'll see if they can take that step here Friday night. Should be a good game. Honestly, would be one of those games that could have Big Northern consideration game of the week, but there is a bigger game I see coming down the road as well. But, hey, should be a fun one. But Dixon, definitely a heavy favorite in that one. Next up, Rockford Lutheran at Rock Falls. Last year, this game pitted the two worst teams in the Big Northern Conference, and one of them got their first win of the year in Week 9. That went to Rockford Lutheran with a 22-16 win over the Rockets. Lutheran went 1-8 last season. Rock Falls went 0-9. Lutheran projected to win this one by 2 touchdowns. Shim, thoughts here? We'll keep it short.
Yeah, I think it's just two struggling programs who are looking to get off on the right foot, in a year where 3 wins could get you into the playoffs. Maybe we know there's going to be 2-win teams that sneak in. Could one of these teams maybe find a second win somewhere? I don't know, maybe.
I think being in a close conference, they're going to have a hard time getting to that playoff point cutoff unless it really drives more 2 and 7 win teams getting in. That's just my personal thoughts, but it'll be interesting to see because, like we talked about earlier, if you go off last year's teams, there was like 14 that made it in at 2 and 7. Could that be more this year? It could be, especially when you take a look at there's 493 playoff eligible teams this year. We're probably looking in the ballpark of 475 to 478 that will actually truly be considered playoff eligible once you deduct out the Chicago Public League schools that can't get into the playoff field because of the limitations that they have on their system. But when you take a look at that, you factor that in, could that drive that 2 and 7 number up? It could. Also, that could change. That would be how many teams have harder games this year and find themselves deeper in the hole than what they thought as well. I mean, there's always those variables, right? I think it's going to be very hard for either one of these teams to get to 2 wins, if you want my honest opinion, just based off of what they got going on across the Big Northern. Just my thoughts. Okay, our next game takes us to Stillman Valley. Winnebago at Stillman Valley. Last year, Winnebago won this game 51-25. That kept Stillman Valley out of the playoffs. Winnebago went 3-6 on the season. Stillman Valley went 4-5. If you guys remember this game correctly, I mean, I remember putting the playoff projections together, having Stillman Valley in the playoffs because they were projected to beat Winnebago. And then Winnebago put a number on them and kept Stillman Valley out of the playoffs. And Winnebago wasn't even going to make the playoffs with a win anyway, which clearly they went 3-6. Granted, you look forward at this year, now they would both be in the playoffs, so that would have been a huge win for Winnebago had it happened in the playoffs this year. But hey, we're here, and what else can you do? I mean, it's fun to be where you're at right now. Both teams looking to make a comeback. Obviously, Stillman Valley has a new head coach in Chris Weber. This game is another one of those games that arguably could be considered our Big Northern game of the week, but I still feel there's a bigger game since both these teams didn't make the playoffs last year. I think there's a bigger game yet coming up that will be even more decisive in that. But I don't know. Shim, we'll start with you. What you got here? Obviously, there's a lot of high talk about Winnebago, especially being much more improved this year over last season as well.
Yeah, it's everything that I've heard. It sounds like Winnebago's on trending upwards. But I think this is a great matchup of two teams who are just looking to start off on the right foot and have a successful fall. But I think the big question is, how will this new era of Stillman Valley football look coming into this year?
Logan?
Yeah, I'm with Shim. It'll be interesting to see how Stillman Valley looks. I like this game. It's projected to be pretty close. It's a rematch of a game that kept a team out of the playoffs last year, so obviously Stillman Valley would like to get the revenge for that, even if it's bittersweet still. I think it'll be a fun one. It's a good week one game. Kind of get the blood flowing. It gets you into that competitive atmosphere outside of a blowout. Those games suck for everyone involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Big Northern's a conference too, especially with the addition of Dupec this year. I think we're going to see a lot more parity outside of Rockford Lutheran and that other school, Rock Falls. I don't think either of those two are really going to be in the conversation piece of anything going on in the Big Northern. But when you take a look at the rest, I think there's a lot of different things that can really change the landscape of what we're used to seeing in the Big Northern and provide us some very entertaining football and really bring that level of confidence up among several of the teams. I mean, obviously, Byron's been the talk of the conference for the past, we'll say, 10 years. Stillman Valley's had a couple seasons in there where they were able to compete and or win a conference title. Dixon's been right there in the thick of things. Outside of that, though, I mean, it's really been Byron and Dixon, and whoever wins that game is who is getting crowned Big Northern champs. And like we already stated, it's been Byron, Stillman, Byron, Stillman, Byron. Sounds like one of those things. Boing, 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 boing. But this game has a lot of great opportunity to be one of the biggest games in the area. Winnebago projected to win this one 24-23. So that will be interesting to see if that comes to fruition. But likewise, I think there's a lot of people expecting this game to be a big one to open up week one, and it should be. But we're going to discuss our Big Northern game of the week presented by Best Realty when we return right after this.
Thinking about buying or selling a home? Trust the team that knows this area better than anyone. Best Realty. Whether you're looking for your first home, upgrading for more space, or relocating, Best Realty is committed to making the process smooth, honest, and successful. With deep roots in our local communities and a track record of results, Best Realty isn't just in the business of homes, they're in the business of helping families take the next step. Best Realty. Local experts, real results, real people. Call today and move with confidence.
Welcome back to our Big Northern Game of the Week presented by Best Realty. We have Dupec at Oregon. This game being played Friday night at 7 p.m. Dupek last year went 7-4, losing in the second round of the playoffs to Byron 38-12. Oregon went 5-5 last season. They also lost to Byron in the first round of the playoffs, 63-15. Coach Brock Kunder enters his fifth season in charge with the optimism that Oregon can actually improve upon their 5-win total of which they've had for each of the past 3 seasons. They have a lot of seniors returning. A lot of those guys played very valuable snaps throughout the season last year. Likewise, on the other side of the ball, you have Kyle Demas entering his second year in charge of the Rivermen. He states his success will hinge on their ability to win the line of scrimmage, particularly the ability to be able to run the ball and stop the run consistently. They don't have a big senior class, but they are going to have to rely on their junior group and other underclassmen. Now, when you take a look at Dupek's recent history from 2019, well, we won't count 2019 because they played Chicago Harlan and then they got romped by Byron. We'll start in 2021. And if you look at their playoff run since 2021, they've got 2 quarterfinal appearances. Their only losses are to Byron twice, IC Catholic, and Wilmington. And if you count the 2019 playoffs, there are other losses to Byron. So they've lost to Byron 3 times. IC Catholic and Wilmington when Wilmington was still in 3A. And that was, of course, Wilmington bounced between 2 of their state championship runs, and they still made the semifinals that year. With that said, Dupek has not lost to any of the 3A playoff competition teams that they faced in the playoffs out of the Big Northern. They've beat Oregon. They've beat Genoa Kingston. They've beat Stillman Valley. I think this is a great fit for Dupek. I think this is a big game for both teams opening up the 2026 season. Shim, I'm going to turn it over to you. What do you got on this game?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's a big game for both teams. Obviously, I think a lot of us expect to see Dupek have a lot of success in the Big Northern this year. But we've also been hearing a lot of talk about, Oregon taking another step forward this year. And I think it'll kind of just be a good measuring stick for both teams, kind of seeing where they're at, tier-wise in the Big Northern.
Logan, what do you think on this Dupek-Oregon matchup?
Yeah, I find it really intriguing. I just went back and looked. Oregon, has 9 guys back on offense. That's fairly significant. I find it really interesting. Obviously, Dupek has had really good success against everyone not named Byron in this conference. I think this is going to be a really good game. I think it will actually be closer than the projection says it will be. That's just my opinion. I like Dupek to win. That's again just my take on that. It's our game of the week for a reason. It's a very good tune-up game. It's a very good week 1 game.
Yeah, I agree. Right now, speaking of that projection Logan's talking about, it has Dupek favored 36-7. I agree with you. I think this game's going to be much closer than that score, which is also part of the reason why I put this down as our game of the week, because ultimately you got 2 playoff teams here. Both of them went down to Byron last year in the playoffs, first round, second round, respectively. Dupek definitely had a closer competition score with Byron than what Oregon did. Oregon lost 35-0 in the regular season, and that was a Byron team without Considine at that time. Then they got shellacked in the first round of the playoffs, 63-15, a game I was at. It was played on a Friday night before the rest of the playoff games. But if you remember the first time, Dupek played Byron twice last year. They lost the first one 42-14, but they were up 14-13 at halftime. And then Byron showed face, was able to shut Dupek out the rest of the second half and then build their score up. The second time in the playoffs, Byron definitely had control from the opening kickoff, won that game 38-12, but definitely not as closely contested as what that first game was. Likewise, Byron is still pretty much higher level team than what Dupec was, and rightfully so. They were the state champs. With that, Dupec does have some players that they have to replace off of last year's team, some key players at that. Obviously, one of those is Dermot Dolan. Another one would be linebacker Justin Anderson. They do have guys that can fill those roles. The question mark is going to come down to that offensive and defensive line that Coach Demas puts in there. And, it's one of the things that we talk about with Dupec on a more consistent basis is the linemen. Their skill guys are very, very athletic. The linemen tend to not be as athletic. But they do have some strength this year. You're going to see some guys step up. Declan Dolan, Colton Frent, Dylan Maurer. Those guys are some strong boys that if they can get off the ground and running and make some big impact holes, I think that you can see that be very successful in a very rugged and physical Big Northern Conference. The only other problem is that Dupec does not have a lot of depth on the line. So they cannot risk injury, if that makes sense. So with that, we're going to move on to the WIVC when we return right after this.
Ready to outfit your team or gear up for the season? Get trusted service, custom designs, and hometown commitment from Breedlove Sporting Goods, serving Kewanee and their surrounding communities since 1949. From quality athletic equipment, team uniforms, screen printing, and embroidery to trophies and awards, Breedlove's has what you need to compete with confidence. Whether you're a coach, an athlete, or a supporter of local sports, they've got you covered. Call them today at 309-852-2434 to outfit your squad, customize your gear, or plan your next fundraiser. That's 309-852-2434. Breedlove Sporting Goods. Support local champions and get ready to play hard and finish strong. Need a fresh look? Look no further than Neff Paints, where quality meets craftsmanship. From gyms and locker rooms to living rooms and home projects, Neff Paints has you covered with top-tier products and expert service. Trusted by local pros and proud supporters of our area athletes, Neff Paints brings the durability, color, and finish that lasts. Ready to get started? Call Skylar at 815-541-7338 and take the first step toward your next transformation. Neff Paints, locally owned, community-driven, quality you can see. Are you looking to raise funds for your program? Look no further than Leading Edge Fundraising, helping teams and programs raise more with less hassle. Whether you're gearing up for a new season or trying to hit a financial goal, Leading Edge has the tools, products, and experience to get you there. From youth clubs to varsity programs, they've helped teams across Illinois maximize profits and minimize stress. Want fundraising that actually works? Go with the local experts who know how to win off the field too. Contact Brandon at 563-514-1647. Leading Edge Fundraising, raising the standard. Reach out today and take your program to the next level.
Last but not least is the WIVC. We're going to start in Beardstown, where the Tigers are going to play host to North Green. Last year, North Green went 0-9. Beardstown was 1-8. They did meet up in week 1 last year. Beardstown won that game 41-6. Logan, we're going to turn it over to you. Obviously, we've heard a lot of rumblings about North Green, potential co-op with Carrollton that was turned away. Coach Mellenthin is doing a great job at North Green as well. Not necessarily stating it's going to turn into wins quite yet, but I like the positive demeanor and the way that he is really taking control of the program, but keeping face being North Green as well. And his commitment and devotion to everything that he's got going on. You couldn't ask for more out of what he's doing currently.
No, you're 100% right. I remember just going off of that. I remember last year he made a long post saying, he knew what he was getting himself into and he was committed for that. So we'll leave that part there. Both these teams, they met last year. They'll be both running a spread style offense. Obviously Bridgetown, like you said previously, won 41-6. I think this game will be closer than that one last year. I tend to believe that North Green has a year under Coach Mellenthin, as does Beardstown under Coach Chris Sawyer. They both have second-year head coaches going into this. I tend to believe this game will be closer than what last year happened to be, just simply because, North Green, they have a good, talented underclassmen class, and again, they're underclassmen. I don't expect them to be making waves right away, but they're adding a little more depth. They got, I think it was 31 kids, out for the team this year, which they're building that depth. They're getting to where they want to be. Beardstown, they returned, obviously, their quarterback, a couple linemen. It'll be interesting to see how year two kind of goes for them. I heard during the summer that they played Pittsfield, one of the teams we had in our 11-on-11. Pittsfield played them, and Beardstown had supposedly gotten a little bit better. So I find this game interesting. The projection's 35-24. I think the game will be somewhere along that line. I think it'll actually be a close game.
Shim, what do you got?
Winning.
Yeah, I think it's, just a game of two programs that have kind of, struggled trying to get something to build on to start the year. Find a way to start the season 1-0.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that this game will be closer. To be quite honest, I wouldn't be surprised if North Green wins this game. Logan, you talked a lot about Bowen Berry being a big-time athlete, and I think with some of the pieces that they have returning, especially the fact that, yes, they have a lot of juniors, right? With a couple seniors mixed in there, but I think that extra year of maturation is definitely going to help move North Green in the right direction. While Beardstown, like you said, is slated to win this game, I wouldn't be surprised if North Green wins this game. And I think a lot of people that are outside of these two programs are hoping to see North Green win. Let me put it that way. But it's a great opening game. Might be one of the best opening games in the WIVC to kick off the season. All right, let's take a look at our next game as we travel to Concord. Triopia will play host to our little tiger, the Calhoun Warriors. Calhoun went 12-1 last year, losing in the semifinals. Triopia was 4-5, missing out on the playoffs. Last year, Calhoun won this game 42-0. Logan, turn it over to you. What do you got?
Yeah, I definitely been a weird time prepping for Triopia. They only return, I said last week, 3 on offense, 4 on defense. So kind of a brand new team. They were very senior heavy last year and just barely missed out on the playoffs. On the flip side, we are very senior heavy this year. We were junior heavy last year. So a lot of the kids that played in that game are playing on Friday night this week. The projection says Calhoun 41-3. I got no comment on that. You got to play the games to see what happens. I think it's going to be a good game. Triopia has a lot of history. 2 wing T style offense. Triopia one's more of the wing T. Calhoun more of the double wing. It'll just comes down to who comes out and plays better.
Yeah, when you take a look at, our state rankings, Calhoun's opening the season ranked number 3. I think that in order to open up the state rankings like that, to play a team in Triopia, no offense, but this is a statement game to come out of the gates to show that Calhoun is a state contender. And albeit everything on paper says that they are, our rankings show that they should be. But as you said, you still got to go out there and play the games, and we haven't even kicked anything off yet. So, I mean, and don't get me wrong, like, I totally understand where people are like, well, state rankings don't mean anything. You're right. They don't. But at the same time, they do, right? I mean, they do tell us who the stronger teams are, especially when you got people that are putting them together that pay attention to small school football more so than what the Associated Press does. I mean, let's be honest. Yes, there are some Associated Press voters that do cover small school football, but the bigger conglomerate of them sit in the upper echelon schools, don't really know boo-hoo crap about small school football. At least with us, we have a panel put together that does focus on small school football. It's all we focus on. It's what we love. And with that, I think it gives small school football a voice as well, to know that they have an area of coverage that is outside of the suburban life where all that gets focused on are the bigger schools. And with that, it also brings a bigger following because of that purpose. And, you know, in this case, I think Calhoun needs to come in and show who they are right out of the gates. The projection 41-3, I don't see why it can't happen. Wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit bigger than that as well. I think Coach Winkleman's trying to get Triopia turned back around. Like you said, they're very tradition laden, but at the same time, it's hard to get things moving in a positive direction when you were 4-5, just missing out on the playoffs a season ago, and you only returned 3 guys and 4 guys on the offensive and defensive sides. That means you have a lot of potential opportunities there with potential growing pains as well. And if you take a look at this roster, you got a lot of juniors in here that you're going to be relying on to carry the bulk. If Triopia can keep this game close, I think that in itself will be a successful opportunity for Triopia as they continue to build. Likewise, I think this is a season where if they can find themselves in the thick of things, it's going to build for the following season, especially with how young they are. That's my take. Shim, what's yours? You got anything on this one?
I mean, just kind of like you guys touched on, you know, Calhoun coming in and taking care of business and showing why they belong at number 3 in our rankings.
Yep, agreed. All right, let's take a look at one of the biggest hitters in the WIVC over the past several years. Camp Point Central goes on the road to West Central. Last year, Camp Point Central went 10-1. Losing in the second round of the playoffs to Brown County, who went on to become state runner-up. West Central lost in the first round of the playoffs, finishing with a 5-5 record. CPC won both meetings last year. Week 1, they won 50-8, and in round 1 of the playoffs, they sent West Central home 44-0. Logan, you listed here in your notes, this is a big prove-it game for West Central. Obviously, projections have it heavily favored in that of the Panthers of Camp Point Central. What makes this stand out to you for opportunities for West Central?
Well, I talked about it last week, but they only lost their quarterback, one back, and an offensive line. They returned a bunch of guys from last year's team. I think it was 8-8 is what I listed. So they return a lot of good players. They made the playoffs last year. I wonder if they can make that jump. They have a first-year head coach in Grant DeWitt. I was watching some highlights. They were more double wing. They were more double wing based. There's some shotgun stuff in there, like if they're in long situations, like most teams have for an emergency. Cooper Ettinger is going to be the quarterback. He came in last year when Riker Ford would move around from quarterback to halfback to receiver when they would want to get him the ball in space. And he did a fine job when that was on his table and presented to do so. I think to really open up the eyes of like, oh, Winchester's making that jump that seems to just be a year away. I might be a year too early on this. That if they can keep this game respectable, I'm not even going to say win, keep it respectable. It will open up eyes for people. And then likewise, they have an angry Camp Point team coming to town. There's no question about it. They're not going to be thrilled with how their season ended last year. They were a great team. They just came up a few plays short. They have a sour taste in their mouth, and they want to prove that game against Brown County where they lost, it was just a blip on the radar.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, let's be honest. Camp Point Central was everybody's favorite to get to the state championship out of the South bracket last year. Got upended by Brown County, which also opened the door for Brown County to go deeper, of which they did, bookending their first state championship game appearance. And with that, I think that Camp Point Central returns just enough, plus the culture that they have built, to be very, very dangerous once again this year. Likewise, opening up the season ranked number 5 in our state rankings, which puts them as the third highest ranked WIVC team this year. But at the same time, I think, like you said, Coach DeWitt at West Central, coming off of a 5-5 season, opportunities there to improve on that record. And even if they improve by 1 win, get to 6-3, and let's say they are a lower than 8 seed, but they get a host one of those opening round games, that's going to provide them another opportunity to help build on to what they're doing currently, in my personal opinion. I do like Camp Point Central in this game. Again, just like we just talked about with Calhoun, this is a big prove-it game for West Central, but at the same time, Camp Point Central, you're opening up on the season, ranked in the top 5 in the state, live up to the billing. And I think they will. I mean, like you said, they got enough guys returning to where they're still going to be very, very dangerous. All right, route at your new home, Greenfield Northwestern. And I know that you're not there yet. You're only employed there currently, but this should be a good one here for Greenfield Northwestern. Obviously, 7-4 last year, losing in the second round of the playoffs. Route went 1-8 last season. Coaching turnover. Surprisingly, this game was close last year. Greenfield Northwestern won 19-0. Do we think that Greenfield Northwestern will improve from what they were last year? And can they be just as feisty as what we saw out of them last year while increasing their win total?
I do. I think they will be. I do. They play Camp Point next week. Obviously, we're talking about this week, but they do play Camp Point next week, and then after that, their North schedule, it doesn't include Brown County. I can't remember the other. It's UP and Triopia. Uni Pace and Triopia is their other 2 North games. So they don't play Brown County. I like this team. Obviously, returning Ty Bowman's a big piece, but they brought back the majority of their skill guys. Like I said, they just had to replace the interior of their offensive line from center and their 2 guards. Losing Caden Roberts is a very big deal. He was a very good football player. I'm not going to sit here and act otherwise, but to that point, Greenfield has this culture. They've built this culture of it's kind of the next man up. Whatever their team needs, that's how they build their team around. That's what they do schematically on offense or schematically on defense for what it applies to. They're very good. They're very well coached. They're disciplined, and they always give themselves to maybe other people, to the outsider, what would I claim a puncher's chance. Last year, they replaced a lot of guys from a pretty senior heavy team, replaced their quarterback, top receiver, even a couple offensive line spots, if I have to recall. So I think Greenfield is going to improve upon that 7-win total, and I wouldn't be shocked to see them to continue to receive votes depending on how their season goes.
Jim, what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think it's just a game where Greenfield Northwestern can get off on the right foot and kind of start their season off, get a few things tuned up and get ready to really get into the thick of things.
Yeah, I agree. Greenfield Northwestern projected to win 31-7. Logan, it sounds like you think that projection might be a little closer than what the final score could be. Greenfield Northwestern could win bigger than that yet. Be interesting to see. Should be, especially like you said, Greenfield Northwestern's in the state rankings, receiving votes. Can they improve upon that? Can they be a force to be reckoned with in the WIVC South? Obviously, Calhoun, the heavy favorite in the South Division this year. Greenfield Northwestern, can they be clipping on those heels? It's yet to find out. Very possible. Next game, Unity Payson at Pleasant Hill. Unity was 4-5 last season. Pleasant Hill 2-7. This game was very close last year. Unity Payson won 28-22. And if you take a look at the projections for this year, Unity Payson projected a win 34-24. What does Unity Payson have to do to get back to the playoffs? Probably hold standard ground. What does Pleasant Hill have to do to get back to the playoffs? And what does this game mean for both of them? Logan, go.
For Pleasant Hill, it's getting on the right foot. They've always seen the last several years since they last made the playoffs in 2017 when they lost to Red Hill, to be in that somewhere when they win games from that 1-2 win mark. They've played close games a lot. I wasn't shocked that Unity Payson was a good game for them last year. Obviously, Unity Payson won. What I find very interesting about this is Unity Payson lost a bunch, and it's a bunch. They obviously lost their starting quarterback in Sawyer Allen, who was otherworldly for them down the stretch, trying to will them into the playoffs. And for Pleasant Hill, they returned a fair bit. I listened to a Muddy Rivers thing. They returned a fair bit. They're highly motivated. They see this playoff expansion as good for them, that it gives them a chance because they're one of those teams that are low on numbers year in and year out. That motivates them. I think this will be a good game. I think for Pleasant Hill to win it, they're probably going to have to get a turnover or two, and they're more kind of I formation based, but they do a lot of double option wing T style offense, just a little more sometimes out of the eye. Menden's more spread, and Menden has notoriously had very good skill kids, but they've always struggled a little bit in the interior. So I wonder how that matchup kind of goes down.
Shim, what you got? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a winnable game for both teams. I think I think both teams are just trying to, find that first win of the season, get off on the right foot and start trying to push towards, a decent draw in the playoffs and see what happens.
Yeah, I think Coach Woodworth definitely has a lot more returning players, whether it be starters and or guys that are back from last year. And likewise, I think that adds value to the opportunities that present themselves as well. I think Unity Payson will win this one. I could definitely see Unity Payson helping themselves out. Obviously, being in the North Division, I think, between them and Triopia, they're probably going to be battling for that number 3 spot in their conference behind Brown County and Camp Point Central. Likewise, I think both teams have that opportunity to kind of get over that edge. Likewise, both of them should be back in the playoffs this year as well with the expanded playoffs, which can provide a more excitement and opportunity for them to continue to build their programs. I like UP in this one. All right. Last game. Leave it to Brown County at Carrollton. Would you say this might be the game of the week in the WIVC, Logan? If you had to pick one.
For me, it was between them and Camp Point and Winchester, just because of the amount of kids Winchester brought back. But I think most people would pick one of those two. Just my opinion. Last year, Brown County 11-3, obviously lost to Lena-Winslow in the state title game. Carrollton 8-4. 2 of those losses were in Brown County. One in week 1 and one in the quarterfinals. Brown County won 28-7 in the first meeting, 37-13 in the second. It's no secret how high I was on Brown County going into last year, even going into the playoffs at 7-2. I had stated that they are a very good football team, despite 2 losses. They were a dangerous team, and it proved out to be true. Carrollton, it's a new era for them. They have Coach Robert Buchanan there. They have a new OC, a new DC, so a lot of moving parts there. A lot of moving items. Likewise for BC, they returned a good amount of talent off of last year's team. Obviously, there are significant losses in like Micah Henry and Vince Little and Trey Fullerton, but they returned a nucleus that is still very good. They just might be playing a different position now. In the case of the Casting kid, who's been now moved to quarterback. It'll be interesting to see how this new look Carrollton squad does against Brown County. They're number 4 in our state rankings. They have to go to Carrollton. Both meetings last year were in Brown County. It's not a short drive. I don't classify as a long drive. It's probably a little over an hour if I had to guesstimate in my head. I think this could be a good game, but I lean, giving my hand here, I usually post these on the page, but I lean towards Brown County winning this game based off of what they return, what I think about them as a team, what we as a group think about them as a team. I think Carrollton has an uphill battle. That doesn't mean they can't compete. They competed in both games last year, though.
Yeah, I agree that, what we've seen out of Carrollton in recent years definitely would make this a game of the week situation. You got 2 playoff teams here. Carrollton obviously came into the quarterfinals last year once again. Brown County obviously making a statement last year, getting to their first state championship game, doing it behind the backs of beating 2 teams that had beat them in the regular season in both Camp Point Central and Calhoun, who, let's be honest, those were the 2 teams that everybody was looking at as being the favorites coming out of the South, and with Brown County right behind them. And it was Brown County that made the turn and was able to upset Camp Point Central, get by Carrollton, and then upset Calhoun for that opportunity to play in normal. Great season for them. Obviously, a great season for Carrollton, despite it ending in the quarterfinals. I think getting to the quarterfinals for Carrollton, based off of how their season went, and the fact that, let's be honest, they were really the 4th best team in the WIVC, and they made it farther than what Camp Point Central did, obviously due to draw, but to be in the quarterfinals with the team that they had is definitely a successful season, in my opinion. Because if you asked me if that was a quarterfinal team at the beginning of the year, I would have told you absolutely not. But when we started putting playoff projections together and we started seeing where those opportunities could fall, I remember telling you, Logan, I said, I wouldn't be surprised with the right draw to see Carrollton in the quarterfinals. And they got that exact draw and they made it to the quarterfinals. So I think they got as far as they could get with the talent that they had. Brown County, obviously, opening up ranked number 4 in state, in our state rankings. A lot of people think that they lost a lot to graduation, but realistically, you take a look, they return a lot too. And I think that they can continue to be just as dangerous this year as they were last year, but they cannot rest on what happened last year. They have to know that you're going to have to show up every week, and it starts right here against Carrollton. Obviously, BC projected to win this one 35-12. If anything happens like last year, I think being that it's week 1, that score might be a little bit closer. But like you said, Carrollton is under a new coaching regime now. It's going to depend on what they have and how they're responding to new personnel. BC, obviously, under Coach Little, a lot of experience, a lot of returning staff members, quite a bit returning players. BC wins this one. The Battle of the Kelly Greens. Shim, what you got here on this big game between Brown County and Carrollton?
Yeah, I think obviously we expect both these teams to be pretty good this year. But like you guys touched on, I think Carrollton keeping it respectable, within a couple touchdowns is kind of the main goal, I think, for them going into this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that gives you a look at week 1 as we get closer and closer to opening kickoff. Obviously, it's getting more and more exciting because opening kickoff is here. Week 1 is right upon us. Just got done covering all of these games. A lot of good games out there. Obviously, some games are going to be runaways, which we expect as well. But I would say for an opening week, there's some very intriguing matchups across the state. Obviously, we touched on the NUIC, the Big Northern, and the WIVC, which we're going to continue to do all year long here. That's why we added Shim Dog to our group this year, and I put the challenge on Logan to start doing more coverage onto the WIVC so we could definitely expand out with further coverage. And so far, we're off and running, boys. It's been a lot of fun. Looking forward to a great season. If you haven't booked your rooms to state yet, I would suggest you do so. I'm already there. Got mine booked. We're going to have a great time and, looking to see what we can do for instant reacts in the hotel lobby. But we got to get there first. We got a long ways to go. 15 weeks, right, Logan? Holy smokes. But it'll be here before we know it, too. I mean, we're only getting to week 1, and before you know it, we're going to be talking about week 3 when I get back from Colorado, and we're already a third of the way through the season, and it's just going to be crazy. But either way, like I always say, get out to those games, cheer for your teams. As always, root for the NUIC, but it's kind of hard to say that this year when we're covering a bunch of different conferences. Root for your conference. Have fun. We'll see you next week.